we go. And you are looking live at the 6th episode of the Jacksonian. As I have with me is the host of Locked On ACC, Candace Cooper. As we go over some of our takes and our reactions to the ACC CW TV contract, who's on the hot seat, who's going to be the surprise team, who's going to be the disappointing team, and what the atmosphere is going into the media days, amongst other topics. How you doing today, Candace?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me, Jackson. Really appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you for coming on. For those who would like to know a little bit about you, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. I am the lead co-host of Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs, 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We talk all things ACC, all teams. Any conference news usually comes through our way. We are on YouTube and wherever you listen in the audio space. I am a North Carolina grad. I swam there back in 2008 to 2012. And so I've seen, the highs of the highs, lows of the lows, and all that's in between when it comes to being a Carolina girl. But I certainly am happy to talk about all of the great conferences, all of the schools in our conference, and how, exciting it is just to be a part of this show with Jackson and hopefully get you some good takes by the time it's over.
Here we go. And the first question, that we're going to have to get out of the way is, when you found out about the ACC getting the TV contract with the CW for 50 select games through the 2026-2027 season, what was your reaction?
I think it's a step in the right direction. I think you got to do something, especially when you want to talk about access and allowing a lot of your ACC fans to experience game days. A lot of times with Bally Sports, it was very difficult to watch, your favorite teams, whether it's having to download a subscription, pay for an extra channel, do all those, hoops that nobody loves when they're just trying to watch a Saturday football game. So I think having the CW on basic cable, something that no one can disagree with, is certainly going to be exciting for the ACC, just having another access point and then hopefully gain some new fans who maybe tune into the CW on the regular.
I'll definitely tune into the CW for sure. But it's funny that, nobody could figure out a time slot or network for Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. They're like, ooh, Bama, Texas. Ooh, Oregon, Texas Tech. Yeah, Auburn, California. Yeah, here you go, kid.
Yeah.
Be happy what you get, Cincy.
Yeah, I think Pitt and Cincinnati is certainly an interesting matchup because of where they both sit, but it's going to be exciting just for Pitt to kind of kick off the season for the ACC. They recently were in the ACC championship. And so, of course, we always talk about our teams sort of holding down the fort with how they're viewed in the national space. So this will be a big dub if Pitt were to get it.
So I was looking at something on Twitter the other day from Saturday Road, and it was a list of who's the most underrated out of the four. Louisville, Georgia Tech. No, wait, it was Louisville, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, and Miami. I'd say Pitt, but what do you think, Candace?
Well, I personally feel like Georgia Tech and Louisville might be the most underrated, only because Louisville had a great program that didn't necessarily have the best coach in place for them to, excel and be great. I think Georgia Tech, with this new regime that is Brent Key, I think now that he's a full-time coach with a quarterback that he trusts, it's going to be interesting to see how he sort of changes it and turns things around pretty quickly, similar to Mike Elko at Duke. So I would say Louisville and Georgia Tech. Virginia Tech has a lot more work than I would give them credit for right now. And I think Miami has the dog, so they're never underrated. They just gotta execute.
Yeah, I mean, Virginia Tech is not the Virginia Tech from when I was a little boy.
100%. Beamer ball is long gone a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's a disaster over there. But that turnaround job by Mike Elko from Duke last season, holy cow!
Yeah. I made a bet with some of my co-hosts when we had a few more on the show at the time, and I said they were going to win more than 6 games, and they didn't believe me. And lo and behold, they won 9. I think, again, similar to Louisville's situation, they just needed a good coach. It was time to change. I love Coach Cutcliffe, but the game had certainly passed him, in my opinion, and I think Elko just brought a new, fun energy that made it fun for fans to want to come and support the guys.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you had that discussion with me last year, I'd have been like, "Oh, Duke's having a losing season."
See, you just gotta. I'm probably one of the only few that is a Duke football girl because it's the easiest way, the easiest traffic you'll ever experience in college football because there's not a lot of people. So,
Well, memo to me, I'm making sure I'm asking you about the North Carolina schools for sure. Harvest
absolutely.
Hero wishes us a very good evening.
How you doing?
And we have one of the best ever YouTubers and Twitter people named Traveling Fools giving us a yo 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 and a yo 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 to you too, Traveling Fools. Thank you for coming on and watching the show, TF.
Absolutely.
Jeffrey from Only Tall Sports, one of the best in the business, by the way, says Duke was a very nice surprise last year.
Absolutely agree. I think they're going to keep that momentum going. They have a lot of good returners, and I think Riley Leonard's probably the most underrated quarterback we have here in the ACC.
Oh man, I am so looking forward to watching a little bit more of Riley Leonard. It's going to be fun watching.
Yeah, 100%.
So this year is the first season where we're seeing the 3-5-5 schedule, and we have 0 divisions. What's your reaction to that?
I think it's high time we got rid of divisions. I think a lot of people who were in the Atlantic were complaining that the Coastal had it too easy and, they coasted their way to the championship every year. So I think it really is put up or shut up for a lot of these Coastal teams. Are you as good as you say you are? I think for Atlantic teams, now you have no excuse. You don't have, the Atlantic to depend on, or you're not worried just about Clemson. You got to worry about everybody. You can't get caught up in these Coastal games to sort of, take you away from your chances at being in the ACC championship matchup. So, I'm glad to see, a free for all who wants it more type of time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I do wish somewhat that they kept the divisions, but like put all 4 of the North Carolina schools in one division, then put the 2 Virginia schools there, and put either Clemson or Louisville on there.
Yeah. I think from a recruiting standpoint, definitely would have been nice to see some of the North Carolina teams have to battle it out amongst each other. But at the same time, when you talk about regional and trying to get better, it's good for a Boston College to have to face off against, a Duke or somebody of the similar sort, and all those sorts of mixed matchups that we'll see throughout this season.
Yeah, and funny thing was, like, the reason that they put Florida State Miami in different divisions was so they could have Florida State Miami an ACC title game.
And Miami never quite got on the bandwagon for that, but still time for them. Maybe they'll figure it out one of these days.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they almost had Miami in the ACC title game against Florida State 2012, but then Miami decided we're giving ourselves a ban for 2012.
I think they were a little bit scared of having to face the Noles and possibly losing, so for sure.
Oh, for sure. So Only Talk Sports says Duke was a nice surprise last year. They most certainly were. Hummus here says some people are picking Duke to pull off huge upsets. And Only Talk Sports also says at least the Coastal Division was interesting to watch every year.
100% agree. I do believe that the Coastal, you never could quite call it. There was always someone who was going to upset in a weird way. I think Duke and Pitt were probably the most up and down series that you would have, and Virginia Tech and North Carolina, those sorts of schools who, would come down to the wire in the end. But, it's really exciting for teams like Virginia, teams like, what's my favorite? Duke, obviously. And I think from Atlantic Division side, NC State, they don't have that Clemson monkey on their back. Florida State, same thing. But, Clemson's still the prominent school, right? They're still the ones that everyone wants to beat.
Oh, for sure. So I have a list of the 3 permanent opponents for each team. Now, Boston College has Miami, Pittsburgh, and Syracuse. Any arguments with that?
No arguments with that. Seems like a Big East type of reunion for some, but I think that's fair enough. They got to play somebody, and either way, it's going to be a tough year for the Eagles and Jeff Hafley.
Oh, for sure. And in 2024, it's perfect timing to celebrate the hell Flutie.
Absolutely the perfect time. They are going to need a lot of hail fluties in order to make it through this season.
Oh, for sure. And Clemson has Florida State, Georgia Tech, North Carolina State. Any argument for that?
I think that's great matchups. I think it'll be very interesting to see how Georgia Tech and Clemson, hold up, especially with how well we think Georgia Tech's going to do. The Clemson, Florida State, Clemson, NC State one is just, if you've grown up recently in the ACC era, those have been some of the most exciting difference makers among the Atlantic Division in terms of people going to that title game. So those games are definitely going to matter whoever makes that postseason.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely. So, and then we got Duke. They have North Carolina State, Wake Forest. Obviously, there's no arguments with that.
No arguments with that. I think those are like staples, and really, if you're someone who likes to, fight with your rival in the grocery store, those will be a perfect ones for you.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes.
Fight with your rival in the grocery store. I'm the guy where I see like somebody wearing a T-shirt of random thing. I'm the kind of guy that's talking to them at the grocery store.
So do you? I'm sure you talk to Auburn guys when you're in the grocery store, or Alabama fans, all the things. So yeah.
And Tennessee fans.
There you go. Tennessee fans, I'm sure will grind your gears this after last season.
Oh yeah. So there we got Florida State. They have Clemson, Miami, and Syracuse.
Yes.
Any arguments on that?
No, I think that Syracuse certainly will be one that it's like a must-win game for them. But beyond that, Miami certainly will give them. You throw out the record books, it's going to be a tough matchup. And then Clemson is Clemson, and that's the monkey that got to get off their back in order to even be in contention for a championship. So I think those are all good matchups for them.
Well, then we got Georgia Tech. They have Clemson, Louisville, and Wake Forest.
Yeah, so I think Wake Forest is more of like a battle of the brains, and I think that Louisville is certainly one where we don't know what either team is going to bring, but I think that's what makes it exciting going into the season for both of them. It's not a must-win game for either, but more so of a litmus test of where they're at, and I think Georgia Tech, of course, with Clemson, that'll be their biggest challenge.
I feel like Wake Forest is getting the short end of the stick.
I definitely feel like when the committee came together and rolled out this plan, Wake Forest definitely didn't get the best of the best. But I think that's just from a reputation of being sort of that forgotten about school, not because lack of talent or lack of, wins. It's just certainly just an afterthought when it comes to, media presence and being a smaller school and those sorts of things.
Oh, man, that is for sure. Mm-hmm. Then we got Louisville. They have Georgia Tech, Miami, and Virginia. Louisville, Miami is annual.
Yeah, 100%. I also think that Virginia and Louisville, it'll either be a good pick-me-up game for Louisville or it'll be a big upset for Virginia. So that's probably one, if you're circling on the calendar as a Cardinals fan, to watch out for.
There we go. And Miami, there's no arguments on this one, obviously. Boston College, Florida State, Louisville.
Yes, I think Miami has its work cut out for them this season. Every ACC game is going to matter for them. It's really put up or shut up. Again, they have all the dogs and all the things necessary to be a really successful program. I mean, with Tyler Van Dyke and company, Cam Kitchens, it's pretty much up there for them to be great. Just a matter of can they go out and get it done.
Exactly. And North Carolina has Duke, North Carolina State, and Virginia. For those who don't know about the North Carolina-Virginia game, that's the South's oldest rivalry.
And it certainly is one where you never know how it's going to go. It's one of those coastal gimmies where it's always up in the air. North Carolina can be having a great season and they get popped in the mouth by a 2-win Virginia team. So North Carolina can't take any games lightly, especially with a guy like Drake May.
Oh, yeah. He's going to be awesome to watch.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think they should have made an exception with North Carolina, add Wake Forest to that list.
Yes, I agree. I definitely agree there.
And North Carolina State, add Wake Forest to that list. But Clemson, Duke, and North Carolina, obviously there's no debating that.
Yeah, I really think that the biggest miss was the NC State Wake Forest matchup. If you were close to the triangle or you're used to ACC, really close in that triad area, Wake Forest and NC State has become this nice rivalry. And it's upsetting because they played for like 100 years straight, and now they don't have that definite game matchup. But I think that ultimately NC State has a lot of good games in front of them as well. Can they get that 10-win season finally under Doran? That'll be the biggest question.
Oh, that's for sure. We got to see if they're going to get a 10 wins. Maybe they'll go to the ACC title. Who knows?
Yeah.
But here we go. There's Pittsburgh. They got Boston College, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I think Pitt certainly is a defensive powerhouse. They've come to, have that reputation under Narduzzi, and now having Phil Dracovic, especially with that Boston College matchup, that'll be very interesting. Like, can Pitt show that, Phil was right in leaving, or can Boston College pull an upset and say you should have never left? So that'll be fun for them.
Miami definitely going 3-17
Maybe so, but I don't know if they can last those many games for football.
So there we got Syracuse. I wish Pittsburgh could play Penn State and West Virginia, but that's another topic for another day.
Yes.
Syracuse has Boston College, Florida State, and Pitt on their schedule annually. Any arguments about? Well, we went over Syracuse, Florida State, I guess.
Yeah, I think that Syracuse definitely has this work cut out for them. They have, some really good guys in Oronde Gadsden. They have Garrett Schrader returning, but I think it's really going to be about coach and his game management, his skill level, in terms of how he executes games, because this is, to me, a very hot seat season for Coach Dino Babers. And, getting 6 wins certainly saved his job last year, but he's going to need at least 8, in my opinion, to secure that one again.
Well, if he would treat every game like it's Clemson, that would
that certainly would help. If he would treat every game like his butt was on the line, I think he would fare better. But sometimes he does not always do that.
And then we got Virginia. I mean, again, no debate that. Louisville, Virginia Tech. And
yes.
Don't worry, we'll wrap this up.
No, you're good.
Then we got Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Virginia, and Wake Forest. I swear they were just like Wake Forest.
Yeah, I think they too kind of got the short end of the stick when it comes to matchups. But the Virginia Tech matchups we didn't see last year because of that Virginia tragedy. But I think Virginia Tech has a lot in front of them, and I certainly hope that with Pride, being from the old regime, can kind of come back and give a little bit of, revival towards what Virginia Tech we're used to seeing, right? So I think it's just they don't really have a quarterback yet. They have some defensive holes they need to fill, but there's promise there. I think they're getting the right guys is half the battle.
And finally, we get to Wake Forest. They got Duke, Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech. They should have added North Carolina State.
Yeah, I think arguably to me, Coach Clausen is one of the best when it comes to just how he executes games. I think, he has one of the most technically sound programs. It's hard to find them making mistakes, and they love to capitalize on yours. So I think that the Demon Deacons are going to be set and ready for whoever comes their way. Not having Sam Hartman is going to be very telling. But I also think that Mitch Griffiths is more than prepared. And, having Sam go down last season and having to have Mitch step up is going to be nice, at least have that game experience as QB1. And so hopefully he can keep that momentum rolling.
For sure. I mean, it's going to be an awkward reunion between Sam Hartman and Wake Forest at Notre Dame State.
Yeah. It's definitely different. And good for Sam. I mean, he's on year 7 of college football, but eventually he'll have to get up out of here. I do think Wake Forest may not win that game, but they definitely will give them a fight.
And let's see, Virginia Tech fans definitely wish that the Hokies could return to the success Frank Beamer had.
A lot of people miss Frank. A lot of people miss Beamer ball. I think that not hiring Coach Beamer, who's now at South Carolina, may have been a miss. But hey, he's getting to have his own shine down there with the Gamecocks. And I think that Coach Pry, again, he has the right sort of energy that they need after Coach Fuentes.
For sure. And Only Talk Sports also says, I missed the Eric Dungy season for Syracuse. They were fun to watch that year in 2018.
Absolutely. I think that Syracuse they have a tough time recruiting. It's especially in this new era where NIL, it's hard to sell Syracuse, New York. But I certainly feel like they have the pieces in place to be successful, and they have some pretty good, offensive linemen. Defense was a powerhouse last year, so it's just a matter of playing a complete game throughout the entire season.
You know what would help Syracuse in recruiting? If they could promise the players that if you go to Syracuse, you will play in Yankee Stadium at least once a year or once every 2 years.
Do you like seeing baseball or football games played on baseball fields?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would sell me.
I mean, Yankee Stadium, sure. In Boston, Fenway, maybe. Yeah, for sure. Anywhere else, no.
That would help the Syracuse Boston College game. Make that game an annual neutral site game. 1 year, instead of it being a home and home, it can be a home and home neutral site. 1 year it's in Yankee Stadium, and 1 year it's on Fenway Park.
See, this is why you need to be the commissioner. We might need to sign you up. You have some great marketing ideas.
Well, we'll definitely get to that commissioner question in a little bit. He's in trouble.
Big trouble.
And, speaking of trouble, Only Talk Sports says if Jeff Hackley doesn't make a bowl game this year, he could get fired.
Without a doubt. He's either tightening up his resume to go where he wants to go next, or he is going to be taking a year to think about some things.
Oh, for sure. And Hummus Hero says, I feel like it's a Rutgers situation at Only Talk Sports. They can axe him, but getting someone better to replace him won't be easy.
100%. BC is not exactly the most desirable coaching job, but it is good. It's still quality football.
Yeah, that was a disastrous move when they fired Jeff Jagodinski.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, you're looking at the Jets? They're out of here, buddy.
Yes, it was not the best. And I think that Hafley certainly came in with high expectations, but he also came in an era where, it was COVID. It was Phil Jacoby getting hurt. There's just so many hurdles that he's had to overcome. But I think this is the last year of excuses, really, and they definitely need to see some production.
Oh, yeah. And Only Talk Sports says, the Hummus Hero, I agree with you. BC would have a tough time hiring someone better than Jeff Hafley.
100% agree. I think it would definitely, they need to just be a little patient, but I think that 5 to 6 wins is essential.
Exactly. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yes.
Speaking of, I want to go over your question.
Mm-hmm.
Who's on the hot seat according to you? I watched your latest episode on the hot seat with what was it, Gibbs? That's his name?
Yeah, Kenton Gibbs. Mm-hmm.
Kenton Gibbs. He said that Norvell should be on the hot seat. Now, you said Matt Brown should be on the hot seat alongside Dino Babers and Jeff Hafley. Did I leave any other names out?
No, those are the hottest seats that we have for sure.
Now, for each coach, how many wins do they need to get out of the hot seat or have that vote of confidence for 2024?
I think that Hafley has to have about 5 or 6. I think that Mac Brown has to have 9 or 10. I think that Dino Babers has to have 7 or 8. And I think Mike Norvell definitely has to have 10 or more.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Florida State's got to show us that they're not one of those hyped up preseason teams.
Absolutely. I don't think that he'll be fired by any means, but I definitely think he needs to back up. I mean, you have everything in place. You have a veteran quarterback, you have an incredible defense with Jared Verse and company, and you have Johnny Wilson, who is an unbelievable tight end. You got to give us something.
I mean, Norvell doesn't have an awesome year in 2023. They'll announce that he's returning to 2024, but it's like, buddy, you better have a good season.
He might not make it through the whole season, that's for sure.
And Coach Primetime was sitting there waiting it out for Florida State.
He just might be. I wouldn't argue against it. I think the Colorado move is definitely just a stepping stone.
Oh, that's for sure. And I'm looking at North Carolina's defense from last season. So the scoring game in scoring was 101st in the nation. The running yards allowed per game were 85th in the nation. The passing yards allowed per game were 115th in the nation, and the total yards allowed per game were 115th in the nation. What can they do to make that defense at least in the top six?
I think they lost a lot in the secondary. I think that they just really have to be better coached. I think Gene Chizik is a great coach, but when at the end of the day, if you're either coaching it or you're allowing it, and for whatever reason we got rid of Dre Bly, hopefully we came in with a better cornerback situation and our safeties can do better. But I think Cedric Gray is really going to have to be that leader. It should never get to the secondary. I think our line has to protect a lot better and allow for some more sacks and just really get aggressive on the ball and really, pressure that quarterback. That's going to be huge for North Carolina, and just not put your offense in bad spots when, Drake May scores quickly. Can you get back out there and play some good defense? That'll be tricky.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did have a great year, but at the same time, that 4-game losing streak to end the year, that's bad.
It was an unnecessary losing streak. Like, losing to Georgia Tech is one you certainly want back. I think that they put themselves in bad positions and they just never really got themselves going. And it's something that you really can't afford if you're trying to be as good as you say you are. And that's why I say Mac Brown's on that hot seat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think they'll fire him. They'll just tell him he's got to retire and go back to ESPN.
Yes, I think that will certainly be the harder conversations will be had.
Or he can have a spot here if he wants it.
There you go.
So, and some of the new hires like Jeff Brom and Georgia Tech guy, Brent Pride.
Mm-hmm.
Not Brent Pride.
Brent Key. Brent Key. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm mixing up my names today.
It's okay.
The rain did not do me any solid. What's your reaction to the new hires?
For Brent Key, I think that Georgia Tech is setting itself up not only with great hires, but also with really good recruiting, like especially with 2024. If you're taking notice, they have some of the top recruits coming to Atlanta. And I think it's just he's setting himself up to maybe have, a bowl winning type season, 6 wins or more, and then really pour into maybe having an 8 or 9 win season next year. So I'm excited for Key to just kind of get to have a lane of his own and not kind of half step. Again, Jeff Sims sort of quit on the team last year as a quarterback, and I think they definitely agree to disagree. But now that it's all Key era, I think it's going to be very important and interesting to see how that transpires.
Yes, I'm curious to see how it's going to be. And, it's going to be fun watching the Chick-fil-A kickoff, which is now called the Apple kickoff.
There are better names.
Well, on the bright side, we can just say Apple. So that was
fun. Oh, my goodness. I'm crying. That's good. I like that.
I don't want to make you cry. Sorry about that.
Only for laughter.
Oh, okay. Here we go. So I want to go over what's the atmosphere going into the ACC Media Days next week?
If our commissioner wasn't under investigation, I don't think that it would be as spicy. Last year, it was a lot about who we're going to bring into the ACC and who we're signing and how we're going to make the teams more money, and a lot of hot seat questions about how we grow the conference and make it stand toe-to-toe with the Big Ten and the SEC with all these TV deals and what have you. I think this year, not for nothing, it's probably going to be, simple. It's a criminal investigation. I'm not going to answer, but I think it's worth discussing, things that are happening at Northwestern. And, I think it's worth discussing, of course, the CW network deal. And are there other things in place? We were told that there were conversations about expansion, and is that still a thing? So I think the commissioner is probably on the hottest of seats beyond just the coaches and the players attending.
Oh, for sure. It's going to be a situation.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Phillips in big trouble, and everyone at Northwestern that's on that coaching staff. I mean, let's be honest. It wasn't only Pat Fischel, it's that interim coach.
Yeah.
And everyone. And let's see. Jeff from Only Talk Sports says Chick-fil-A kickoff is a way better name. That's for sure. So I want to go over another question. Who's your candidate for the surprise team that no one knows about in 2023? Because, I mean, you did have Duke as a surprise team last year. Who's your next Duke this season?
I honestly think it's going to be Georgia Tech. I think they are a team that has punched really good teams in the mouth before, and I certainly don't see why this year will be any different, especially now that Key is, again, in his own era. They're going to be the one that everyone didn't see coming, but close second to that, I feel like Louisville certainly has everything ahead of them with Braum and how much he's invested in the program and how much fans are excited about him. I think that'll be a fresh change for the Cardinals. So those two would be the ones that I feel like they're going to be great. Not sure what I'm going to get, but it feels like a good vibe for right now.
Well, I mean, mine is 4-8 on Georgia Tech, so I'm a little low on them for now. But what's your record prediction for them?
I think they're going to pull out 7, honestly. I think it's ultimately going to come down to just a couple of upsets and catching some teams by surprise. And of course, you don't assume that, Georgia Tech's going to do anything because they don't have a staple or, high named quarterback. But I think that, they're a program that's just chugging along. They're always been good at keeping teams close and maybe pulling away. So I feel as if, 7 wins is likely.
That's a pretty good prediction right there. I mean, I was low on Duke last year, and you're pretty high on them when no one else was.
There's still time to fix it. You can still get on the good side come kickoff.
There we go. And out of all the ACC teams, who's your candidate for disappointment?
Great question. I honestly feel like Miami is probably going to disappoint as much as we want them to be great. I think they're a team that certainly has all things ahead of them to be a pretty prominent program, but for whatever reason, they can't sort of lay it out. A close second would be North Carolina, and maybe that's just because I'm a homer and I really want them to be great, and I would love to be wrong about this, but I think the pressure of Drake May and having this, sophomore season of greatness is going to be extreme. It's just, can that defense figure out how to not mess it up?
Well, I'm looking at the non-con schedule of North Carolina, and they got South Carolina, Appalachian State, and Minnesota. That is scary.
Yeah, Appalachian State definitely has some revenge on the brain after that fourth quarter almost comeback, right? So I think that's certainly one. South Carolina versus North Carolina is always a good game. Sam Howell definitely gave them the business when we had that home opener. So I think, they want nothing more than to prove that they're the best Carolina. So North Carolina cannot play around for any of their non-conference games, let alone the conference matchups.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for now, I have South Carolina beating North Carolina for now. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
That's personal, just business.
Hey, I feel you 100%.
But to your point about Miami, like last season, they were falling apart against Middle Tennessee.
I mean, right? You're right.
You can't treat Middle Tennessee like Middle Tennessee.
It seems so basic, and yet so it's right there for us to be great. But they stutter step. They should have beat Texas A&M, and I think after that, it sort of was downhill from there.
Yeah, I kind of have like this weird feeling they're going to beat Texas A&M, but then they're going to like lose a game that they shouldn't. Like say a Louisville or Boston College.
Yeah, very, very likely because that's where I think Miami is right now. But hopefully they get to a place sort of like Florida State where those gimmies are automatic wins and they can just keep rolling accordingly.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see if Brent Musburger goes there and just goes, "Caught by Boston College, I don't believe it." Yeah, and I'm looking at Florida State right now. I kind of feel like they're disappointed.
You think so?
I feel so for right now because I mean, LSU's gunning for blood. I mean, that missed extra point. It is
true.
Their minds.
That's very true. I'll give you that one. It's definitely something that has been marked on their calendar. They want that get back. And I'm sure, Coach Kelly has been beaming in their heads to get right. But I would say Florida State's a different team. Like they are now full on Norvell era. They are bought into the system. There's no question about who their quarterback is between, Mackenzie Milton and Jordan Travis. You don't have to fight with that. And then, if you have a healthy Jared Verse, he's probably one of the best on that in defense. So I'm hoping for Florida State's sake and their fans' sanity that they can figure it out.
Well, and I'm saying that Clemson, they got to go deal with Clemson. And
Yeah.
I mean, Garrett Riley's going to get that offense going. I mean, I feel like I'm seeing somewhat of like 1971 Alabama, where Alabama was just kind of falling apart from 68 to 70. They're just kind of going like, hey, why don't we go to this guy named Darrell Royal and ask him about the wishbone offense?
Yeah, it worked out pretty well for him, huh?
Yeah. And I'm seeing somewhat of that same effect with Clemson because like Dabo's like, I don't want to touch the portal. I don't want to touch the hurry up offense. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I'm not doing so hot in the playoffs. I mean,
yeah.
I
think he enjoys being the underdog and having that fake underdog story as if he didn't just win that whole championship. But whatever works for him to get that respect on the national stage, I'm certain that he will be ready for it.
Oh, yeah. And I kind of feel Pittsburgh's going to take down Florida State for now.
Ooh, okay. That's a good one.
You're going to Pittsburgh. That is like a horror movie in the making if you're a top 25 team.
That's true. That it's definitely hard to play at what used to be Heinz Field. I think it's like Azure or something now.
There we go. Only Talk Sports says Wishbone makes great salad dressing and is the great performance.
Their Wishbone Italian dressing is actually top tier, so I appreciate that. That's funny.
Oh, that is for sure. And yeah. So I'm looking at the ACC title game, and so far I'm kind of trying to figure out who that second team is between Pittsburgh, Florida State, and North Carolina State. I mean, I know Clemson's gonna win the ACC. Sorry, rest of the ACC. It's somebody's got to tell it.
I want it to be Florida State. I think it's going to be Clemson, but North Carolina definitely is the dark horse for winning the whole kit and caboodle. It really just boils down to that defense.
Yeah, that's the thing that's getting to me right there, the NC defense.
Yeah, and I think NC State also has a very good chance because they have Brennan Armstrong now, who's coming from Virginia, and he's used to his new offensive coordinator that helped him at Virginia. But the strength of his arm is going to be what's in question because the Brennan Armstrong that we're used to seeing certainly did not show up last year.
Oh, for sure. And I'm looking at NC State's schedule. Some of their toughest games are at home. Notre Dame's coming to Raleigh, North Carolina. Maybe Connecticut could be a trap game week 1. Who knows?
As much quiet as it's kept, UConn is definitely not a sleeper. Like, I think that UConn is a team that certainly is high on upsets. They're high on making sure that, programs that think they're not going to beat them certainly do. And so I think NC State is going to have to come out ready and have kind of tunnel vision as they try and make their quest towards ACC championship.
Oh, yeah. And they also have Clemson coming to their backyard, and it's a week after chilling out watching Clemson play Miami.
Yeah, and like as if that's a scrub set schedule. So no, I get it.
Yeah, because I mean, like NC State's always having a hard time at Clemson, but they give Clemson a big game. The last time it was at Raleigh was 2021, that big upset.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was a great upset. And I think it's one that, it should no longer be looked at as an upset, but more so about two great teams battling it out. However, until NC State gets that mentality of it's not an upset, it's truly just us playing one of the best here in the conference. And I think they'll fare better. But it's definitely still an upset mentality, which I think they don't need to have.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and with North Carolina having that tough non-con schedule, I mean, We haven't even talked about the first conference game in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You gotta go to Pittsburgh. Oh, I swear nobody's letting you rest North Carolina.
That's true. That's true.
Tough non-conference schedule and a tough first conference game. Great, dude.
I think that Mac Brown wasn't lying about his schedule being tough, especially with those last couple games, but that's why you make it and that's how you have to play it. And I certainly don't want to hear any pity because, that's why they play the game, right? Put up or shut up.
Exactly. That's what a wise old man said. So happy that he's still at ESPN at the moment for NFL Prime Time on ESPN Plus.
Yeah. True.
So if Matt Brown does indeed retire, if this is indeed like his last season or 2024 is his last season, who do you think would be a great candidate to be the Nets head coach?
For North Carolina? Oh, I don't know because we went the whole old school keep it in the family type of vibe. And I think someone who has no affiliation with North Carolina would be great. I don't know. That's a really good question. I would have to think about that one because I honestly would want Riley to go ahead and get that spot, but I don't think he would leave Clemson this early. However, I wouldn't be upset at that idea.
There you go. Somebody needs to snatch up Garrett Riley.
If he has a phenomenal season, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a one and doneer, but it would have to be an outstanding, no questions asked, Cade Klubnik Heisman level, that's the only way.
I mean, if Garrett Riley does win a playoff game before Lincoln Riley, I mean, imagine the conversation at the dinner table where the two of the boys are asking mom and dad, Mom, Dad, who's the best out of the both of us? Oh, you both are. And then the dad's like, it's Garrett.
Yeah, exactly.
And Only Talk Sports says, rest in peace to Heinz Field. And Only Talk Sports also says that 2021 North Carolina State Clemson was an instant classic.
It was an instant classic. I think that Clemson definitely had some injuries that prevented them from being their top selves. However, you got to play who's in front of you, and NC State got it done.
There you go. NC State, Dave Duran getting the job done. Traveling Fool says Clemson's going to get slapped in Miami.
I don't think that's going to be the case, but crazier things have happened.
Jefferson, all about the U. Oh man, that's one of my favorite documentaries.
No, that's a great 30 for 30 for sure. I think NIL, if Miami had NIL back then, it would have just been otherworldly.
Oh man, I love the one where in the 91 Cotton Bowl where the guy's running into the tunnel after a touchdown, and then he's like a gunfighter.
Yeah, they had some characters out there for sure.
Oh man, I want to see a touchdown celebration like that.
They got to bring it back. I'm ready for some touchdown celebrations similar to how they do in the NFL. I think they're a little more strict in college.
Like, I always have this talk with some people. They always complain about like touchdown celebration. Like, that's not classy. It's like, well, if you don't want somebody doing a touchdown celebration, maybe don't allow them to score a touchdown on your field.
Listen, that's very true. If you don't like people when they score, don't let them score. It's very real.
Exactly. We will score at least 87 goals on Clemson.
Yeah, okay. Maybe in basketball.
Games at the Orange Bowl back then were fire.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely some good times.
Tell you the truth, I'm still kind of like trying to figure out the emojis. I'm a 25-year-old stuck in an old man's body when it comes to emojis.
It's all good. Hey, listen, everyone figures it out. I don't have TikTok to this day and probably never will, but try to keep it youthful.
I don't blame you. I mean, TikTok is like, I only use it when I have to. That's it.
Yeah, I have enough distractions in my life. TikTok, I can't handle another one.
I mean, it's like I have like a few relatives here and there. It's like I watch it for them, but that's it.
I mean, it's news for some people. Sometimes it's like it's better than Google because it's real live, commentary and all the things. So if you want to go down some rabbit holes, TikTok is the place.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like Twitter the best because it's like everybody vents their feelings on there, and YouTube's pretty awesome and all. But Twitter, oh man, it's like everybody's happy, sad, angry. Everybody's talking about their feelings.
Yeah. It's very emotional over there, that's for sure.
But it's very hilarious for sure. And I only talk is dad pit Garrett, mom pit Lincoln, laughing, crying, laughing emoji.
Sometimes it'd be a house divided.
Oh yeah. I wonder how it is at the Kelsey household.
Honestly, I think they both have Super Bowls. They're just fine. Travis just has a couple more.
And Only Talk Sports talks about the Ole Miss dog celebration against Mississippi State. Still cracks me up.
There's always those ones over there. The SEC is a little more lively.
Oh yeah, I remember Odell Beckham doing that in 2017. That was funny.
Yeah, Odell is certainly a character.
Oh man, and he's going to be awesome in Baltimore. I mean,
yeah. I'm excited to go to a Ravens game and see him. That's for sure.
Oh man, that is so cool. You're going to get to see Lamar Jackson in action.
Yes, I never got to see him at Louisville, but I certainly want to make that trip to a Ravens game.
I mean, I'll say this about the Ravens. I mean, they are stacked on the passing game this year.
As they should be if they wanted to get Lamar back.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Prince Mark Andrews.
Yeah.
From now on, Mark Andrews is the new Prince Andrews. He's a true Prince. He doesn't act pampered like that.
1,000%.
But yeah, it's going to be fun watching the Ravens and the rest of the AFC North. And it's going to be fun watching the rest of the ACC. And before we go, any final thoughts on the
I would encourage people to just really tap into ACC football this season. I think there's a lot of good storylines. I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities for many programs who are trying to either, bring back their program of old or really kick off and maintain a level of excellence. And no divisions is going to be super special because there's no guarantees about who will make it to the final two. And there might be some really good matchups that we see come championship season. So I'm really, really excited for that opportunity to just watch some quality football. I think from start to finish, there's only a couple teams that you're like, all right, I wish they could pick up the slack, but you can't argue that every game is going to matter from a conference standpoint. It's going to be good.
That is for sure. And for those who want to discuss with you about the ACC or why Georgia Tech's going to be an awesome surprise team, would you like to tell the audience where they can find you, where they can discuss the ACC?
Sure. You can follow me on Twitter at Candace D. Cooper. You can also hit us up at Locked On ACC on Twitter. You can follow us on wherever you listen to podcasts. You just type in Locked On ACC. We're right there. You can download, subscribe to our pod. You can also subscribe on our YouTube channel where you can see our faces. Me and Kenton Gibbs host each and every day. So we're in off season right now, but we'll kick off as soon as ACC kickoff happens with daily episodes and giving you some nice updates around the entire conference news with football and basketball. So yeah, I appreciate you having me, Jackson. This has been really fun.
Oh, thank you for coming on, Candace. And one more thing, I have all 4 of the North Carolina teams going to a bowl game.
I see. That's what we like to hear. I hope you are right.
Well, I believe I will be.
No doubt.
And thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for subscribing, liking, and commenting. And I will see you on the next episode, everyone.